Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Voice. I'm your host, Ted Maxwell. Brandon Croft behind the glass with me today, and I'm going to jump right in because we are honored to have Congressman Juan Ciscomani representing Arizona CD6 with us on the line. Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey, Ted. Good morning. Happy to be on.
It's great to have your voice on. I want to take this first segment and talk about what's the talk of the day, and that is, are we heading for a shutdown? What's the latest you can fill us in on what you're hearing?
Well, not a lot has technically changed. It's important for people to know kind of like how we, what a shutdown is, how we got here, and what's likely to happen today if something doesn't change by midnight tonight. I think people know fiscal years end on the 30th of September. That's every year, and for the past years, Congress has been unable to pass a budget, and the budgets usually need to be bipartisan because you need a majority in the House to pass it, which whoever has the majority can pass their own budget, which is normal. But then when it goes to the Senate, a majority is not enough there. You need 60 votes to pass a budget out of the Senate. So that's when things can get stuck because both parties need to work together at that point. Well, we passed ours out of the House, and on a very partisan basis, only one Democrat voted to not shut the government down. Every other Democrat except one voted to shut the government down. And except Republicans, of course, we got it through from the House, and then it went to the Senate. Now, the Senate has 53 Republicans, so we essentially need a handful of Democrats to come over and vote against the shutdown, like they did in March earlier this year, and in December of last year, and in September of last year as well. So that has been the practice. The problem is that in March, when a few Democrats did vote against the shutdown, they got slaughtered by their base, and they paid a price for that. However, this is the same CR. Remember, a CR, it's a continual resolution, so this is the same. It's an extension of the funding. We've been passing the same CR since last year, and last year the Democrats didn't have any problem voting for it. The only thing I can see that changed is who sits in the White House. So this has become a highly political exercise without taking regard for the people that are going to suffer with the shutdown. I've been against the shutdown, and you know this. I voted for the CRs with President Biden in the White House and now with President Trump because I'm against the CR, period. I'm against the shutdown, period. I don't like CRs, by the way, but I'm against the shutdown more than I am against the CR. So the shutdowns are not a good idea. They're not good for anyone. And I've been against them, regardless of who's in the White House. But now it's become political because President Trump is there, and they just don't want to advance it. So Democrats are willing to shut the government down over that, which is very, very unfortunate.
And Juan, you've been very vocal in the past about your dislike for a shutdown. Then you've said you don't like you said, you don't like continuing resolutions. Either you are on the Appropriations Committee, which is probably one of the most has to be a bipartisan type approach because you get behind this closed doors, you have the tough conversations, you come up with multiple resolutions that you have to carry forward, and then when you go out, you have to carry those. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you have to carry those because you were part of that negotiation process. What do you think? Obviously, the political side of it's become a big deal, but what's your biggest concern and what prevents us from actually just doing or getting to a budget?
Well, you're right on the appropriation side of things. When you look at what the work that is an appropriator, I get a different perspective, right? Because we put in all the work, we go through the summer, and we create and pass a budget. We did that by passing 12 bills out of the House. Out of the Appropriations Committee in the House, and then some have actually passed the House. So we are making progress. However, the deadline is what it is, and the job wasn't done by the entire House until then. But every time you're passing bills to the Appropriations Committee, you know that at some point you're going to need to come to the table and again, with the Senate alone, negotiate there because you will need both parties to come along and agree with whatever gets passed at the end. And everybody understands that. So that's been the understanding. But Washington has been so divided for the past years. So, I mean, it's been getting worse over the past decades, of course, but it's been really, really bad in the past few years that there hasn't been able to find any kind of consensus around the budget, and that's why CRs have become the way to go, which also as an appropriator, I don't love CRs because when you continue the same level of funding, when you look at defense and you look at other areas, that becomes an issue. But the alternative, which is a shutdown, has never been an option for me because of who pays the price. You're talking about Border Patrol agents. You're talking about our military, air traffic controllers, veterans. These are all groups, people that shouldn't suffer the consequences of not getting payment for a period of time while we can't even figure out extending a 7-week extension. This is what we're talking about here, Ted. This is the most frustrating thing about it all. And both our U.S. senators in Arizona understand this, and they decide to play the games. Ruben Gallego and Mark Kelly, they know this well, that we're talking about a 7-week clean CR. What a clean CR means is that we didn't get cute with it. We didn't put any gimmicks in it. We didn't try to squeeze anything else in there to, get a priority in there, which we could have done, but we didn't. We just said, okay, same kind of everything that we just passed in March, 7 weeks from here until Thanksgiving so that we can actually resolve this and continue the negotiations. Well, they say no. They want the shutdown. Why? Because they want to – now they're the ones that are putting in all these extra things that they want out of this CR. They want to take away the rural hospital fund that we put in there of $50 billion. They want to get rid of the verification checks for legal or illegal people in the country on Medicaid. They want to do all these things that they're squeezing in there that do away with the tax policy we just passed. I mean, they want to just basically undo all that we've done up to this point, and they're holding the people that are going to be impacted by this shutdown hostage over their priorities. They're over there in D.C. right now, parading, taking selfies, saying they're fighting for our country. I mean, look at that selfie. I would look at that and say, these are the faces that are shutting the government down. They're voting to shut the government down, and it's tragic.
So would you say, Congressman, that a big piece of this is they're really trying to renegotiate the budget bill? Because so much, what you talked about, the clean CRs, just that there's nothing in there. It's nothing changing, but the issues that appear to be what they're willing to shut the government down or fall on the sword for are the issues that came out of the budget bill. Is that kind of how it's playing out right now in D.C.?
They're focusing a lot on the reconciliation bill that we just passed.
Correct.
Right. So that's what they're trying to undo from what we have done up to this point. But again, when you're looking at a clean CR and it's a 7-week clean CR that they've supported, I mean, just again, like in March of this year, then Schumer was quoted saying nobody wins in the shutdown, which I completely agree with. And again, I don't know if you saw the readout, I guess, or the interviews after the meeting with the White House yesterday with Schumer and Jeffries, with the president and the speaker and Thune from the Senate. Vance, Vice President Vance at the end said, "Hey, they're making some suggestions that are some are really crazy. I read some of them for you that we can't entertain, but others are actually things that we can consider." He said things that they brought up that are good points, which is how we usually do it. So at this point, they're trying to negotiate everything before midnight tonight, and they know that's not possible. What we're saying is, great, let's consider all that. We've got 7 more weeks. While we figure it out, people get paid. While we figure it out, the government stays open. While we figure it out, services remain. People pay a lot in taxes for the government to just shut down because we can't figure out some differences. And that's why we're saying let's extend it for 7 weeks. Let's continue these conversations. We have a new deadline of Thanksgiving, and now let's go to work at that point. So from here to then to continue this, we're on the right track, I think. And from the readout on the meeting with the White House, it's showing good signs. But they want to burn everything down to get it all before September 30th, tonight at midnight, or shut the government down, which is outrageous to me.
Well, having been through several government shutdowns when I was still in the service, what I think people really don't understand is for a lot of those members, we still required them to come to work even though they weren't being paid. Eventually, the ones we could, eventually the government makes everything right on the pay front, but now the costs of going through a shutdown have already occurred. The time, the money, the effort, it's just wasted time. And nobody in D.C. is going to want to have folks out there that say, hey, I didn't get paid. So you eventually make it right on the pay front, but that doesn't make it any easier on the problematic front during the time of the shutdown.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's something that is not generally known. I think people assume that, you shut the government down, you save money, right, because it's not operating. Well, no, actually you spend more money during it. You spend more money reopening it and rebooting some of these services. You're right. A lot of people, Border Patrol agents included, military, they still show up to work. Now they have to go home without a paycheck, though, for a period of time. They are made whole at the end, but it's still a very, uncomfortable situation there where they have to go do that, which is, again, something that we just can't afford. So it's going to be more expensive. And let's remember this, and you and I have had this conversation several times about shutdowns, when there were other people that were risking a shutdown. It doesn't matter to me who has been risking a shutdown. Sometimes on the Senate or on the House or on both sides of the aisle, I have been against the shutdown from the get-go. And the same people that are voting for the shutdown now have also been against the shutdown before, with a difference of position now, including, again, both of our U.S. senators. And I keep calling them out because they are the ones right now that are in the position, Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego, to actually do the right thing for Arizona, our military bases. We're a border state. We have a lot of veterans in Arizona. Air traffic control is a big deal here in the state. We have all these priorities on the table that they're letting politics get in the way, both of these senators, by voting against the CR and for the shutdown. And they've been for the CR before, this same one. So it doesn't make any sense what's happening here unless you factor in the politics of it. And that's their calculus. And I think they're missing the mark here because it's our job to govern. I'll vote and I'll do the right thing based on what I believe, not on who sits in the White House right now. So they have to do the same thing. So,
Congressman, before we jump to break, for us not to face a shutdown with Senate action, it's going to require, as I understand it, eight Democrats to cross the aisle. So obviously, the two from Arizona could be two, but we're going to need 8 because I also understand Rand Paul's probably going to be a no on this. Do you think there's any chance we'll see that?
I'm an optimist, so I'm hoping they can see the light from here to midnight tonight. So, but
that is one of the things I greatly appreciate about you, Juan. You are an optimist. So if you could stay with us, we're going to take a short break. We're going to try to work for an extra minute at the back half, and I know you have another event at the top of the hour, so I appreciate you being with us. That's the voice of Juan Ciscomani, the congressman representing Arizona CD6, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us through the break. We have Representative Juan Ciscomani representing CD6 in the state of Arizona with us today. Congressman, I appreciate your insight on the potential for the shutdown. I think this one's shaping up. It's a high probability, but I'll be optimistic with you. But there's one thing I want to talk about I'm definitely optimistic about, and that is the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's a caucus I was first exposed to in Congress by Congresswoman at the time, McSally, and Congressman Sinema was also part of that. 49 members of Congress who come together in this caucus, 26 Democrats, 23 Republicans, and you are the only one from the state of Arizona, either an R or a D. Can you kind of fill our listeners in about the Problem Solvers Caucus and what you think that can do?
Yeah. Of course. That's a problem. Well, it's called Problem Solvers, and the whole point of this is to be able to bring Republicans and Democrats together that are willing to, again, solve problems and many times put some of those differences aside to be able to focus on things that we believe in. So you don't need to give up your principles to be on that, but the whole notion of it is to seek opportunities of saying, okay, this is an area that we actually do agree on. And it doesn't reflect that the entire GOP or the entire Democrat Party may agree on that, but we've got a group of almost 50 people saying, okay, these are things that we're willing to work together on. Border has been an example of that. I recently led a trip with the Problem Solvers to the border. We've got a few Democrats, some were from border states or districts, and some were from all over the country, understanding where we are today in the border versus where we were a year ago. And they came down here with a true intention to understand and see the differences. Some of them had visited before, and they saw the vast change of everything that has been there, and some really hadn't. But it was a great opportunity to, again, just lock in around an issue that is important to the country, and that we have had some Democrats that value border security as well.
And I think that is something that we could use more of in Congress. Also, since Charlie Kirk shooting in Utah Governor Cox has been very vocal as well about you don't have to agree on everything to still get things done. Find where you can agree. And I think this is what the intention of these 49 members of Congress. Over 10% of the House is part of this entity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's a great way to put it. You don't have to agree on everything, and there are, listen, many times it's happened where we're in one of the meetings for the caucus, and we're discussing something that we agree on, and the next meeting with the same person that I agreed on that issue, I'm debating something on opposite sides. But we got to be able to have that difference and say, okay, well, for the issue, for what I'm trying to solve. Another one that has been a good ground for bipartisanship in that has been around veterans. This is an issue that is important to obviously everyone should be, and for us, it's been a great one. I actually passed 2 bills for our veterans the week that we left. So that was 2 weeks ago, not last week, but the week before, on Monday, 2 weeks ago today, we passed 2 bills out of the House for our veterans. One so we can help with their readiness before they leave the military, and then the other one is so they can have broader access to health care and quicker as well across state lines. So these are the things that we worked on, and those 2 bills passed with broad and wide bipartisan support, because they're good for our veterans and they're good for our country. So these are the things that I'm able to accomplish through that. Again, Ted, I go back to the same point. I'm in Congress to actually do something, make a difference, pass legislation. People sometimes forget that the role of a member of Congress is to legislate, that we're part of the legislative branch. And you've got people in there that have been there for decades sometimes, and they've made a big name for themselves, and they're famous on TV and on social media. But then you look at the legislative record, and it really doesn't have much to show for that. That's the way they decide to run their seats, and that's all over the country. I'm not pointing anybody specifically or any party. That happens on both sides. But what I'm pretty clear why people send me there, and that's to legislate. And that's why this is one of the ways that can help me get there and do the things that we have to do and pass legislation, in this case for our veterans. So I'm proud of the work that we do there. And it then is reflective, again, I think, of our district as well. When our district is 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat, and 1/3 Independent, we kind of grow up knowing how to work with everyone around us, whether we agree on everything or not. We know how to operate and be successful in that way. So I think the problem solvers are a reflection of that.
Well, I appreciate you highlighted that, and I also appreciate all your support of veterans throughout. And here's one final question. We've got about 45 seconds left, but just saw that Congressman Schweikert has announced that he's going to run for governor in the state of Arizona, and he's one of those that I think's a highly respected person when it comes to the budget. Any thoughts on hearing that news?
Well, that's been speculated for some time now, and he finally made the move and jumped in. That makes that race even more interesting and one to watch. And not only the governor's one, but obviously CD1, which is critical. It's one of those toss-up districts as well. So the state of Arizona just got back on the map in more than one way.
No, there will be plenty of money flowing into the state, I have no doubt. Congressman, thank you for all your support and your help, and thank you for joining us today on KVOI.